Brilliant. Your Excellency, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Not at all. Good to see you all.
Thank you very much. Well, we're very happy to have you here with us, and it's an absolute pleasure. I'll begin by introducing myself. So I'm Hamid Behzad. I'm a lecturer here at the BUB, which I know you know quite well, and I'll introduce you to these welcoming faces that you see upon you. So we have Mohammed, we have Al-Juri, and we have Ayman. Your Excellency, I'll begin by just giving you a brief about, I know you know the university quite well, but let's say the departments that we come under as well. So we are here from the Built Environment College here at the BUB. And at the Built Environment College, we offer 3 degrees. So we have project management, quantity surveying, and property and real estate. So the students here with us today are from that degree. As you probably know, obviously, the British University works in collaboration with the University of Salford up in Manchester, and the property degrees that we basically offer here within Bahrain are all RICS approved, and they are designed to meet the UK's finest standards within the built environment industry. The purpose of this program, Your Excellency, what we've been doing with students here at the BUB, we care a lot about our approach to education. So our approach is maybe a bit different in the fact that we focus more on transformational education than transactional education. And the meaning that we will work with students from day 1 or from level 3 or just after they come out of foundation to actually make this more of a transformation throughout 4 years rather than a transactional tick in the box. And what that means is, in terms of a practical sense, we've noticed, and I've personally noticed, being part of the British curriculum for many years and knowing people in other curriculums, whether they're American or so on and so forth, we have enough rich academic content to build minds. But where is the content to build characters? And this is what we're really focusing on here in the BUB. And in that, we noticed that we have very rich academic content coming over from the UK, but at the same time, students lack that local knowledge and outlook. So with the students we have before us here, we began to visit executives, ministers, CEOs, to basically give students that insight to what the real world actually is, for them to actually begin to make those connections. Because you will know, post-university, it takes sometimes students a few years to actually group things together. So this is the purpose of yourself speaking, or ourselves speaking to yourself today. And you are our first diplomats. So we've been meeting with ministers and CEOs. Even though with some ministers we've met, I must say they would make very good diplomats based on their answers. But we're very happy to be with you today. And before I go on even further, I will yield the floor to yourself for any opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great privilege for me to join you today and play a part in this. But I think you're absolutely right. That kind of approach to transformational education and working out how you're then going to apply it, thinking ahead, developing your own approaches are going to pay everyone dividends as you go through this. Just as in education or in learning, it's not sometimes intelligence isn't the most important thing, but emotional intelligence is more important in terms of how you can use it and succeed in life. I think the approach you were outlining earlier on is exactly in that same sort of approach. So yeah, very happy to be quizzed on anything at all, because I think sometimes people have misconceptions about what being a diplomat is. It can mean a variety of different things in different contexts. People approach it in different ways, and it's people sometimes refer to diplomatic skills as being nice and winning hearts and minds.
Correct.
It's not actually that. I mean, that can be a means to an end. It can be about being pretty difficult and defending difficult positions or projecting difficult positions and nonetheless gaining a bit of ground. So it can be you sometimes have to be quite direct and so on, and not at all nice sometimes. Yes. Most of the time we are very nice. But anyway, I've applied it in a variety of different settings over the years. So yeah, happy for you to mind that in any way you want.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, you've probably been probably briefed by your colleagues about what we're trying to do right now within these sessions is we visited maybe for the past year or so with the students with me today. Maybe they could remind me as well. We've visited the Minister of Commerce, we've visited the Minister of Housing, we've visited the Special Convoy for Environmental Affairs, we've visited the CEO of RERA, we've visited the ex-Minister of Electricity and Water. We've been around quite a few guests, and what that experience brought us to is the amount of insight and outlook that these students gained was unparalleled. And we thought, why be so selfish and contain this information and this experience among only our 5, or in this case today, our 3 students? So we thought of establishing a podcast channel here at the BUB to follow the likes of the top universities around the world. And the objective of this conversation, should I say, or podcast, is to basically parallel or basically allow more people at all ages to basically get on the same amount of insight that these students have got. The objective, I think, which is absolutely paramount, is, this is a personal opinion as well, that I believe the majority of ages, maybe today with social media, which are influential, are between the ages of 18 to 35, which are quite active. And within this age range, it's a double-edged sword. And I do believe they would like to know more, but you just mentioned about being misinformed. And I think especially at this age, people tend to adopt ideologies from parents, from family, from friends, rather than developing their own ideologies. And I say this from my interaction with students, because of these visits. They might have followed interviews for government officials, whether in parliament, whether in newspapers, and sometimes it's very difficult, even as I said, people within their 30s, to comprehend, let's say, jargon aside, what do they actually mean? What's the government actually doing? So part of the podcast, what we're trying to do is allow executives, decision makers, to actually explain what they're doing and the direction they're moving in layman's terms, for these people, or in this segment, to develop their own understanding and their own ideologies, for them to take their own choices, basically. And I think that's vital, especially with the role of social media and everything going on around us. I'll begin just giving you slightly, Your Excellency, about the elements. So the element, basically, or the way that we would like to have the podcast. So obviously, you might have been briefed that you will be our first guest, so you'll be on the sort of launching side or the inauguration side. So we don't really actually have a benchmark. We're basically creating it as we go along. As you probably noticed with podcasts, there is a very warm and cozy feel to it. So in comparison to any kind of participation in media, it's not straight into the topic. It's more or less about the person, about the guest, a bit personal. So that's the personal element. And then we would go on to maybe more serious topics and get your views on certain things. What I'll do is I'll begin with jury, and then we'll go on, so on and so forth. And the purpose of today is not really the session, it's more about the prep for the session. So it's basically more of a stepping stone. So the students will basically ask you questions on the lines of what they would ask you in the podcast, in an effort to gather a bit of information to build upon for questions on the actual session. So I'll leave you in the capable hands of our first student, and we'll go on from there on.
Great. Can I just say as well, don't
Sure.
pull any punches. Ask anything you like, be as direct as you like.
You heard that. There we go. Thank you.
First of all, it's truly an honor to finally meet you, Your Excellency, especially that Mr. Hamad has been speaking so highly of you these past weeks. My question is, each ambassador has a direction that reflects directly on the embassy. Some ambassadors are fond of education, military, charity events, or politics, if foreign policy aside. If I may ask, what's your direction that is currently reflecting on the embassy?
Good question, very good question. So, thanks, Judy. So, really good question. So we have a series of priorities which are set on us at any given time, and they do change through any given year, depending on what we're trying to achieve. And it's not just foreign policy, because an embassy covers every aspect of government business with partners overseas. So it could be economic, it could be climate change, it could be cultural diplomacy, a whole variety of different things. And on top of that, we are very much encouraged to go with our own personality and our own, enthusiasms to add that bit extra. But this year, and this last 12 months, I would say the additional thing that's been really, really important, and it's really important to me, is keeping the team together and keeping people connected at a time when everybody's under lots and lots of pressure and stress because of COVID. Because people in my team are living far from home, and wherever that home is, because I have people from a dozen different nationalities working in the embassy here. And the challenges of working often from home, remotely. It can be done. The IT usually works very well. And that's sort of okay. But nonetheless, people can get disconnected emotionally. And the kind of support and the energy that you get from working in teams and comparing ideas and so on is missing in this kind of circumstance. So we're trying to think of things on a regular basis, which manage to recreate some of that and help people and just give them that extra bit of boost and that extra sort of connection. So an example, we had a meeting the other day, and one of the things with a lot of the meetings is that people don't put their camera on a lot of the time to save their bandwidth, or because they haven't done their hair that day, or whatever it might be. And I haven't done my hair today, but anyway. So we had a session in this where we asked people to explain and switch their camera on for 30 seconds and tell everybody in the team what their favorite drink was what kind of tea, what kind of coffee, what kind of whatever it was, maybe show the cup, what was special about it. And you actually saw then over the next sort of 50 minutes or so, lots of different people bringing themselves in and explaining something. And I heard really good feedback from others. Oh, I hadn't seen so and so for a while, or if they had, they'd been part of a work meeting talking about something that's work related, but you missed that social contact. So that's been right at the moment. That's one of the things that I put a lot of effort into, and we'll continue to try and find new and better ways to keep that going, because it's a difficult year, of course, for everybody.
It is indeed, Your Excellency, because obviously I was saying to the class, they asked me yesterday, they said, how long has His Excellency been in Bahrain? I said, well over a year. I said I was anticipating to meet him just like his predecessors at the Ramadan Majlises, but I said COVID kicked in and we didn't actually get to break him the new ambassador as we usually did usually do with the rest. So it has been a very unprecedented time, and it is all about thinking outside the box. And I think right now it's a matter of survival and getting things through. I totally agree to what you're saying about getting people engaged, because obviously speaking as a lecturer in this case, or even as an entrepreneur, it's not the same face-to-face than it is online. It's yes, you can get a message across, but there is this social element, there is this interaction element. And this is what we say about, if we go back to what we mentioned at the beginning of this interview, the difference between transactional and transformational education. You can learn, you can do exams, you can get a degree from all these, University of Phoenix and so on and so forth online. But will you get a proper campus education of interaction, of meeting with others, learning from others, goods and bads, basically? And that's what education is all about. It's that outlook. So I really agree with you on that. Can we say outside COVID, what would be His Excellency's interest, let's say, or direction? Would it be, as Julie mentioned, more on an investment point of view? I know there's a lot of collaborations between Bahrain and the UK, especially now with Brexit, and I think Brexit is a topic we will get to with Ayman. But what would form the next phase of bilateral relations between the UK and Bahrain?
So you're absolutely right. Investment, trade is a big part of that, but you have to then break it down. What are the areas that are going to be of mutual benefit to individuals, firms, institutions in both countries to collaborate on? And that's where we're looking at things like different areas of tech, different areas of education, science, innovation,
Healthcare, health sciences is clearly quite important, quite topical at the moment. And our approach in general is to try and deepen the collaborations. So we want, it's great that you've got more collaborations up to sort of undergraduate level, but we want the people going into postgrads and doing joint projects together, and then forming spin-off companies together in one of these fields, and developing the industries of the next generation. So the more we can deepen that collaboration, those people-to-people exchanges, and turn them into things which are entrepreneurial and are going to develop the next big thing, the next vaccine, the next chipset, or whatever it might be. That's our sort of approach in each of those areas. Break it down, try and focus on the specifics in which sector, within that sector, where do you put your energy, where are the things that could be mutually beneficial, who can do it, and how do we foster that? How do we get people going? So some of the collaborations we've done online with webinars and other sort of discussion forums have been about that, about getting the right experts and the right people together. So okay, that's great. Exchange ideas, and where are you going to take that? What more can we do? How do we help create that framework that takes those things to the next level?
Absolutely.
So that trade investment and that those kind of things are probably a third of what the embassy does, really, in terms of our overall focus. Yeah.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, obviously we spoke that we've visited quite a few, maybe the most related to your case are the government officials or the ministers. And we always like, throughout these visits, because we visit a few which usually work closely together, so we begin to compare and contrast what one official said, and we share it with the other official, and so on and so forth. So for the purpose of the podcast, and this is us just gathering information for that case, from the officials that you have met in Bahrain, is there any, obviously in which that you can disclose of, any initiatives or programs that are currently either pending or going to be initiated that we can possibly talk more about throughout the podcast? So we noticed, for example, one of the visits you've had recently, one of the friends of the class, shall we say, His Excellency, the Special Convoy for Environmental Affairs and the CEO of the Environment Authority. So situations like that maybe you could share, whichever that you could out of this, just an example of what could be cooperation between the Bahrain and UK in that sense.
Yeah. Well, clearly, Dr. Roddy and I have been talking a lot about what we can do to deepen collaboration in areas that will address climate change issues. And there's a host of different areas there that when you break it down, whether we're talking about adaptation, mitigation, climate finance, and it's about trying to work out what are the next steps that Bahrain wants to take. Where's the expertise in the UK? Where can we take this forward together? What are the new industries that have relevance here to help Bahrain meet its renewable energies targets?
Yes, absolutely.
It's to raise the level of ambition, because clearly we come at this from slightly different angles, because our economy is quite differently structured from Bahrain, but nonetheless there's a lot of commonalities, and we're going through the same challenge, as a planet in terms of climate change, and we're all going to go through the same kind of energy transitions over the next several. So there are opportunities of developing all the time that are here now that were not here 5. So we have to keep updating each other's knowledge and work out where to put the energy for the next thing.
Yes.
So I think there'll be a variety of things as we approach the big climate change conference of the parties, COP26 in Glasgow in November, where we will see some joint collaborations and so on there.
Absolutely. I think a very important topic as well, especially right now, economy. So we'll come to the topic of commerce, and another class relation would be His Excellency Zaid al-Zayani. And we even actually asked about, especially as an entrepreneur and a representative of certain British agents, when are we going to get an FTA, and are we going to get an FTA? So would that be possibly something you could elaborate on as well?
Yeah, and that's something that's very live discussion between ourselves and Minister Al-Zayani and also colleagues across the GCC, because as we look at it, the GCC as a whole is one of the largest trade and investment markets for the UK, and somewhere that not only gets UK investment coming here, but invests in the UK in a whole variety of different fields.
Of course.
So it's an area of priority for to make progress this next couple of years, either through an FTA or through some other significant shift forward in the framework between us that opens up more opportunities, that knocks barriers down. We're looking together to see what are the barriers to trade, investment, what are the areas where we are there any legal obstacles or are there other obstacles that we can address jointly and take down for mutual benefit. And again, I think one of the things that we're conscious of with Bahrain is that our trade is pretty balanced. Actually, it's exports and imports. It's trade and services, and there's a lot of complementarity between those exchanges. But they could be better. They could be bigger, and so we need to stay ambitious and try and push that forward over this next couple of years. And so I hope my time here, I've been 18 months, probably another 2.5 years to go. I hope we will get there in that time and make that big step forward, which will help everyone.
Yes, I do agree with Your Excellency, because I think especially your point about negotiating rather than with Bahrain, but as a GCC, as a hub, let's say, or as a collective force, let's say, it goes maybe to something more fundamental right now worldwide, which is moving away from a word which is cooperation to a better word, which is completion. And I think this is where we sort of will work as a GCC with the UK to rather fill in the gaps, basically. Your Excellency, I'll move on to another student, which will basically possibly be talking about through the podcast on the more personal element about yourself and maybe your run-up to Bahrain and everything that followed. So, Mohammed, please.
First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to meet you. Can you tell us about the countries that you have been through, and which would you say that was your favorite and why?
Well, obviously my favorite is always the country I'm in, because I find it's quite important to focus on the here and now. And yes, I have great memories of places that I've worked and lived in the past. But my focus is very much here and now, and will be for the next 2.5 years or however long that I'm here. But I've had some great experiences elsewhere. So most of it's been in the Middle East, in the Arab world, because I learned Arabic a long time ago. So I've served in Algeria, Jordan, Syria, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and now in Bahrain. But I've also had some contrasting experiences working elsewhere in South Africa, in doing trade and investment work for 3 years, in Brussels, working in the European Union, negotiating multilaterally, and quite an unusual experience in the South Pacific as a High Commissioner to Fiji for 3 years, where I can report it's a very long way away, and the sand is very different from the Middle East. So each of those things has helped, I think, me adapt and develop my approaches to different things, because each of them are quite a different context. Even comparing one Arab country to the other, the way of doing business, the legal environment, the political environment, the economic environment are quite different. There's a huge amount of diversity across the Middle East, more than I think many people from the outside realize. So you have to adapt your approach, even if you're focused on the same area, let's say trade investment or political affairs. The approach has to be adapted significantly to make you effective and to achieve results in a different context. So it's been fascinating, and I've enjoyed each of them. They've all had their challenges in different ways, but they've all had their rewards. And even if I think of someone like Syria, which was quite difficult politically in many respects, the warmth of the people that I met there made that one of the warmest memories. It was a time before the current conflict, so it was much easier to be there. And a place like Saudi Arabia, which again has challenges in some respects, then it was quite a closed up kind of place in some ways. But once you got to know people and got behind that initial sort of reticence, then actually we made fantastic friends in Saudi Arabia, and I got involved in projects in a whole variety of different ways. So everywhere has its challenges, and you have to really embrace the one that you're in. Same if you change jobs and go into a different organization. Every organization has a different culture. Some say, oh, we don't have a culture. We don't. Every organization, every institution has its own culture. You have to work out what that is and how you use that most effectively to find your place in it or to steer it. And that's part of the challenge. I quite enjoy the fact that I have to change every 3 or 4 years and move around and do sometimes the same kind of thing, but in a very different context. I think that's quite stimulating.
Absolutely. Your Excellency, you mentioned you like the change every 3 to 4 years, but would you rather ask now about the family side? So I think I read married with 3 kids. So how does the family enjoy that side of moving around every 3 to 4 years?
So I think it is actually often more of a challenge for the family than it is for the official, for the officer in my case. And my children have actually all, having enjoyed many aspects of moving around in many different countries, after they went through school and in university, they've actually all settled back home in Scotland. That they're quite international in their outlook, and they travel, or they did before COVID, but they didn't see a need to move around every 3 or 4 years, which maybe tells you something. But I'm very lucky. My wife does really enjoy the moving around, and she was a teacher. She's now an artist, and she is able to draw on those different cultural environments to get a huge amount of spiritual strength from moving to different places. But you start afresh every time, meeting new people, having to get to know a whole new culture and a whole bunch of new friends. But that's so far I'm still enjoying it. I have no intention of stopping just yet.
Yes, absolutely. I think you mentioned Scotland, and I believe when you were appointed, I believe in 2018. I believe we were in the same place at the same time. I believe you were in Edinburgh and you were tweeting somewhere near the Fringe, and that's where I was at the same time. So that was the summer of 2018 or something. So
that's right. Yeah, when it was announced, yes.
It was. Okay, so moving on from the personal side, now back to a very trendy topic with Ayman. Ayman, go ahead. I think His Excellency, we already know what it is.
Okay, so good afternoon, Your Excellency. Thank you for accepting our invitation today and taking out your precious time. So, Your Excellency, during the podcast, I would like to focus on Brexit, as I believe a lot of the youth, especially from our region and the other countries, want to know more about Brexit and what happened since the voting. It has been now 4 years. A lot have been said, and a lot of media. So to some extent, we have lost our focus in terms of what is Brexit and how will it benefit UK and its allies. So therefore, possibly, if you would like to comment throughout the session, and I can build up on your answers throughout the podcast.
Excellent, thank you. This is some of the most challenging politics that we've had for quite some time over the last few years over the issue of Brexit. Because after the referendum in 2016, it took some time, a couple of changes of government, to work out precisely how to take forward Brexit, the leaving of the institution of the European Union. And the final part of that negotiation was only concluded in December. And a year ago, December 2019, and it only came into effect in terms of leaving the EU in December 31st this past year. So it's taken quite some time for that negotiation, but that's been the negotiation about how we do Brexit and what our future relationship should be with the European Union. And we want that to be actually very close, but just on a different basis. So we don't want it to affect the trade and investment and people-to-people ties that we have with our nearest neighbours, who are also some of our biggest trading partners and so on in the European Union. But we wanted to do this on a new basis so that we were freer to establish different relationships with the rest of the world, because the United Kingdom has always been, and going forward certainly will be, an actor that has, we think, a distinctive place in the world, that wants to have trade relations and relations in every sphere with many parts of the world, and is very global in its outlook. But it's been quite difficult politically. But in the end, we achieved a deal that was to the satisfaction of both the EU and the UK. And so we've got that in place. We can now focus on how we move forward and how we establish our relationships with other parts of the world. So, for example, just the other week, we announced an intention to join the Comprehensive Trans-Pacific Partnership. So we're in discussions with that with a number of Pacific partners, because that is something that we can do as the United Kingdom we couldn't do as part of the EU. And we're pushing ahead with our negotiations with the United States and other partners to put those on an even stronger footing than they are already. I think I would just throw in one big thought for people from this part of the world. You may not notice much difference, in fact, from here, because most people in this part of the world, and certainly in the Gulf, dealt with the United Kingdom as the United Kingdom, but not as part of the European Union. And in most areas, the collaboration that we have, the trade that we have, the people-to-people exchanges and universities and so on, really had nothing to do with the fact that we're part of the EU. So you might wonder what the fuss is about. What differences will you see in this part of the world? But I think I'd just give one example of where already there's a new opportunity. So we changed our visa approach for overseas students, because one of the things that we realized was that we wanted to encourage people to both study in the UK, but then to work for some time, and to strengthen that relationship, because often those first job opportunities people get after graduation are some of the most important for shaping their future careers. So the last year takes effect this year that all foreign students who graduate from the UK will be able to get to work for up to 2 years in the UK afterwards. And so we'll see Bahraini students able to take advantage of that from this summer. And there's a variety of other ways in which, again, I think we're just starting to be able to show people this will strengthen. It's about getting people together. It's about working out, what those joint projects are. We shouldn't be held back by the reticence of being part of the EU, which is an amazing organisation, across Europe, but is not something that we felt we wanted to continue to take advantage of in the UK. So our trade terms, for example, in this part of the world, are already quite developed. they don't depend on an agreement with the EU. So if we can establish, whether it's through an FTA or other agreements with Bahrain and GCC partners in the coming years, it will take us much further forward than we were able to be in our trade relations under the EU.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. You mentioned, maybe this is something we can touch upon briefly, relationship with the US. My question will be, pre-Trump, post-Trump, any change to relationships, projects, initiatives with the new administration of President Biden?
Yes, of course. Every 4 years, the US has an election, and if there's a change of president, it will mean a change of approach. And I think we're very excited by the where we are now and the new ways we can collaborate with the Biden administration. We see huge opportunities across a lot of international collaboration, where the intention of the new administration is to be much more a champion of the rules-based international system across the world, and that's in political and legal terms, but it's also in terms of how you engage in economic development and so on with the rest of the world. And climate change is another where I think we'll see we're strengthening our partnership with the US and with many other countries in terms of how we tackle that shared challenge. So lots of really exciting opportunities to work more closely with the Biden administration. So it's, yes, how we do it, does change with any. But again, we approach this from, we have got our own ideas, we've got our own priorities. Those will often overlap, largely overlap with the United States, but there will be areas in which we have a difference, and we are able to have a strong, close relationship with the United States that enables us to disagree in private or in public on things that we don't have the same position. Just as in fact, with Bahrain, we have a very strong relationship, and on most things we agree, and occasionally we don't, and we're able to have those adult conversations, those very grown-up conversations about those differences, and it strengthens bonds between nations to have those discussions.
Yes. I think if we talk about economy, and this is something maybe I say a lot to my students here, I say the book definition of economics is basically, it's a social science, but I define it more as an art. And the reason why I say art, because one is sometimes better than the other at doing it or managing it. And I think with the UK, and I say to them always 3 words, if we're going to talk about, good economics or good governance, which is basically innovation, uniqueness, and excellence, and they come in steps. And you take one at a time, and to some extent, the first and second one, when you add them together, you get the third. And I think with the UK, what we've been accustomed to over the years for generations was that element of manufacturing, which is unparalleled. When I talk about my own company, products we've installed, we're sometimes staggered in comparison to the competition outside. When they say to me in the UK, this is a 25-year product, I'm like, wow, because everything else would be a 5 or less year product. It'll be chucked out. And I think with the UK, with the openness to Europe, yes, it is sharing resources and all of that, but it, to some extent, made certain producers uncompetitive to an extent where, let's say, production went down in certain areas. I think the opportunity with Brexit, and this is something I have felt personally, so articles aside or news aside, I ordered a product from Germany to be dropped off in the UK. First of all, the time delay was about maybe a month in customs, if not more. And the taxes, maybe the product was about £200 and the taxes were about £50. So we're talking about 25%. Now, as a consumer at the beginning, this is just like when you administer any drug or vaccine. There might be growing pains or at the beginning certain issues, but when I put my entrepreneurship hat on, leave my consumption hat on, as a member of the UK economic environment, I will say this is an opportunity for me, because if we're having to wait a month for supplies and pay those kind of taxes, why are the government administering such taxes? It's an incentive for you to stop paying that and instead open up a factory, employ people, create skilled labor, more opportunities. And I think over the next 6 months, people are starting to see, why are we buying it from so on and so forth? We can just set up a small unit here and manufacture ourselves and create all those benefits. So I do agree, it's going to be a bit sticky and scratchy, let's say, at the beginning. But I think overall, it's something that needs to be organically grown within. But I think once we do that, we will have very good organic crops, let's say. Your Excellency, last part basically is, at the end of the day, this is a filmed broadcast, or broadcast, should I say. And to some extent, it's an opportunity for us, but also it's an opportunity for Your Excellency to share, or should I say, use the podium for your own advantage as well. Any key messages or key ideas that you would like to, set off like balloons within Bahrain from this channel, you can share whatever they are now and leading up to the podcast. Again, obviously, this is not set in stone, so whatever we discussed could be added, could be reduced. It's just more of an introductory session to have the pleasure of meeting you and just carving some things just to begin with. So any key messages you would like to sort of release or launch through this channel or through this program, and we can build on that as well.
Well, just to say that one of the things I really enjoy with these kind of interactions with students, those involved in higher education from the UK, is the challenge, is the fact that I think one of the key things that, in my experience, young Bahrainis who have been studying in the UK or in UK institutions like BUB, is that critical thinking and that ability to challenge and look for new ways to do things. And I'm really encouraged by that, because I think it's really quite important. When I see some of the ex-UK graduates in key institutions here in Bahrain, they can be some of the most difficult and challenging and pushy at achieving things, and that's really important. Not to say take no for an answer. I'm not really satisfied with the sort of simple answers. Always look for the challenge. Is this the right thing to do? Is this the how do we do this better? And so I think keeping that spirit is taking it further is really important for individuals. Where as you embark on careers as entrepreneurs, as you develop your ideas and establish your enterprises and take them forward, keeping that spirit of questioning and inquiry is really important, and I see lots of great examples of this across Bahrain. We've been talking a lot recently in the context of COVID with some of the scientists and some of the academics in that field here in Bahrain, and there's a realization that you've got to go dig even deeper, to get the right solutions for this. You've got to do the genomic sequencing and then work out how you're going to work on a genome level to address some of the longer term problems around that, for example. And none of this is easy, and but it's a great set of challenges to have, and you've got the people, the young people, certainly younger than me, and some great older wise heads in this country to drive it forward. But you've got to have the energy. And keep putting that energy in. But I'm encouraged by each time I have one of these interactions with students and academics here and people and entrepreneurs here in Bahrain.
I like your point about challenging, because I think this is very important. I think if we're going to compare and contrast the Bahrain and the UK, and especially if it's population, we are both populations of people who like to complain a lot. And we like to always hold the government responsible. And this is what I'm saying to the students yesterday. We had a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about certain products or services that might be provided by the government, but they're running a bit scarce. And we're saying we need to be in a position where we start thinking like people within developed countries, where if it's running low or it's sold out, don't complain and say it's up to the government to restock and rebring. You do the job. You fill in the gap. You carry out that job of eliminating that struggle, and in the process you would make an opportunity for yourself and so on. And if I talk about opportunities, at the end of the day, Bahrain's an island, the UK is an island. So what's the most important thing to islands? Bridges. When we look at the different array of bridges that exist between the Bahrain and UK, whether it's education, whether it's investment, whether it's military, whether it's there's so many things, diplomacy or whatever. I say to them, when I went off to university, my personal statement, I literally said this to my UK universities. I said, there are certain bridges that exist within my family extending from east and west. And my journey of 4 years within UK education is to explore these bridges more closely and see whether I'm going to be driving on existing bridges that my family built or create my own bridge. And I think this is what we need to start creating, as in either we, as again, follow existing bridges or create our own. But the links are there. It's up to you to enforce them, basically.
Absolutely.
Overall, Your Excellency, that's us done from this side. We've gathered a good amount of information to basically put forward to the podcast. So the podcast, just to give you an idea, will be held at BUB up in the library. And the program that we have is called Roundtable, and we literally have a round table. And it's a podcast, but it's going to be a film podcast. So the distribution channels will range from SoundCloud, Spotify, but also maybe iTunes and YouTube for the filmed version as well. It will be, a general, very casual discussion. So very similar to what we had today. As someone used to say to me, a podcast is more of a conversation between two or more people, which others eavesdrop on it. Basically, that's pretty much what we're trying to achieve. We thank you overall, Your Excellency, for this opportunity and for accepting to be our first guest on the podcast. It will be a pleasure to have you inaugurate as Her Majesty's Ambassador to Bahrain and, should I say, our BUB's first ever podcast channel. I believe Lauren has her hand up. I'm used to this with students.
No, I'm happy to let you finish. I can come in at the end.
Oh, no worries. I'm pretty much done. Students, do you have any final points for His Excellency before we shoot off?
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and thank you so much, Mr. Hamad.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all the questions and your engagement.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We're ready for you, Lauren, now.
Oh, well, one's really boring and the other one is just to say how much I enjoyed this conversation. I think I learned from both Roddy and you guys, so thanks very much for letting me eavesdrop as your glamorous photographer. If I could just echo the importance of challenge, it's something that I've tried to echo within the Foreign Office in the UK and wider government in the UK. So seeing other people in different countries also challenged, well, to say how important challenge is, really makes me very excited. Also, I am addicted to podcasts, so I'm very happy to see that you're about to embark on what sounds like a really interesting podcast. And Roddy will make a great addition, so that's great. No doubt. One really boring question. We are about to, I've taken a picture. I might take another one. If you would all like to look at the screen, it would be better than ones I've got where you're all talking and a bit blurry.
We could also send you the video feed, and you can capture any photos or screenshots just in case.
If you could, that would be fantastic. Sure. So I'm going to count down from 3, and if everyone can look and smile at the camera, that would be great. So 3, 2, 1. Amazing, fantastic. And just to note that your names are on the screen. Are you happy for me to share the picture with your names on our social media?
Yes, students are okay. That's fine.
Fantastic. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Your Excellency, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you the next couple of weeks at BUB. We look forward to hosting you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you for organizing.